everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We are really excited today to be talking mysteries again. It's going to be so fun. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and today I have a very special guest returning to the podcast. We have my dear old dad is here. And thank you so much, Dad, for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome, Rachel, and I'm not that old. Come on.
That's right. Well, it has been a year since you came on the podcast, and it's been quite a year.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I just got my second vaccination. Made it through the whole year without getting COVID.
Woohoo! I know people are asking, what was your greatest accomplishment during COVID? And that was my response, not getting COVID yet.
Yeah, I almost feel guilty.
Yeah. So what was 2020 like for you? What was the crazy experience like?
Well, for me, it wasn't so different because most of the time, as you know, Mom and I have been empty nesting, and I'm very focused on outdoor physical and recreational activities that are easy to do and keeping social distances and following, guidelines and rules. So it didn't really have that much effect on my life. In fact, I wasn't sick the entire time until just a week before I got my shot. I had a little stomach bug. But I overall was really healthy.
That's true, because you usually get a respiratory thing. We call it the
I do. Yeah.
Yuletide respiratory infection.
Yeah, but with no kids in school and having my office at home and not being W-2 employed anymore, kind of a semi-retirement situation, it wasn't that hard for me and for Mom.
Yeah. So how were the holidays for you this last Christmas season?
Well, that's the biggest difference is we didn't travel like we would have. We would have gone to one of your siblings either in Portland or DC, for Christmas in all likelihood, and other trips as well. So that was reduced. As far as back east, it was eliminated. We still went up to Washougal, Washington, where your oldest brother lives, Benji, but under very specific conditions, and it was driving and not flying. And, so our amount of flying plummeted.
Do you have any films that to you are really important or really speak to the holidays for you that you love to watch?
Well, you mean specifically for Christmas?
Yeah. Like It's a Wonderful Life or something like that?
Yeah, I do like It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, it's always has a lot of insight and makes you contemplate what's really important. So that's probably at the top of my list. As you know, I'm not a huge film guy, but that one, if I were to watch one Christmas movie, that would be it.
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's a classic. Well, so today we are talking about two of our cozy mysteries that we have on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. And we're going to talk about the latest Aurora Teagarden movie. That was Aurora Teagarden to Cotkin. And this is the 15th Aurora Teagarden film. And so they've had a pretty good run. And then we are going to talk about Mystery 101, Killer Timing. And this is the 6th of our Mystery 101. You were actually on the podcast when we covered the first.
Yeah, Mystery I remember because I remembered the setting and the characters.
Yeah. And so let's dive in and let's talk about Aurora Teagarden. And since this is your first Aurora Teagarden that you had seen, did you find it confusing diving in at this point, or did you feel like you were able to catch pretty much everything?
Well, I thought the plot was actually really complex. It was very hard to figure out who done it. In fact, I can't say I figured it out during the course of the film or the show, if you will. I think they did a great job in creating a kind of complex narrative that led you. Always they create suspicion in various characters. And I thought that was a real strong point of it, was the surprise ending, if you will, who the villain really was.
Well, it was because they had sort of the side story of these loans and that all thing happening at the same time that you have the actual murder investigation. So I think that kind of kept you a little bit. That was like a pretty smart way to do the red herrings, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they start out so with Aurora Teagarden, basically she is this librarian that loves true crime uh and investigating and learning about investigations and things. And there's this whole club called the Real Murderers Club. And I personally think it brings a lot of bad vibes to the town because they have way too many murders in one town.
Yeah.
But the Real Murderers Club, they start out this episode by talking about Sante Kimes and her son. And had you ever heard of this have you ever heard of Sante Kimes before? It's a
No.
real she's a real person. Sante Kimes and her son Kenny, and basically they kind of operated sort of a Ponzi scheme, and then they would murder people and to get away with things. Uh and so that was kind of the theme of the movie, was the con of
Right.
Sante Kimes,
Okay.
with the whole mortgage loan plot.
Right.
And so I think that was interesting. I neither of these movies were as good as I hoped they would be. I don't know, there was just something that wasn't quite as good as I wanted them to be, but they both had fun moments to them. And it starts out with this man getting murdered from the past, from 3 years past. And I thought that was a pretty chilling murder for these kinds of movies to start out with right off the bat. He's strangled like that.
Yeah, it was interesting because Mom came in a little late
Mm-hmm.
and she missed that part, and I couldn't tell her what meaning it had at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had that and then you left that 3 years later, and it took quite a ways into the show before the connection was made
Mm-hmm.
to that incident and why it was part of that particular show. And I thought that was good because it
Mm-hmm.
left you wondering, well, why did we watch that? What does that have to do with anything?
Mm-hmm.
And it got woven in later on, which I thought was effective.
Yeah. And I agree. And so we have Ben and Bianca, this couple, and one of them doesn't want to move, one of them does want to move. And they're working with Aida, who's Aurora's mother, and Mary Lou Henner, who we is a friend of the podcast. We love Mary Lou Henner. And and so they find out there's this lien on their house, and that's obviously somewhat upsetting. And so what did you think about this whole idea of kind of the liens and this whole scheme that kind of uh,
Well,
is uncovered?
I think that's given, as you know, I have a law degree and
Yeah.
I've done a lot of real estate transactions. The odds of that happening are,
Not high.
really, really low. To be able to scam the system like that
Mm-hmm.
and convince people along the way, and notaries. I mean, it was kind of so I thought a lot of, as that unfolded, whether that could possibly happen, and I guess it's conceivable. It
Mm-hmm.
certainly was I'd say it was a more interestingly plausible twist than what happened in the second show.
In the 101.
As
Yeah,
far
101.
as being
Yeah.
plausible.
And
So
I think they try to make it, because they have the Santi Kimes element, they try to kind of make it feel believable.
yeah,
And uh
well,
and they don't really, they kind of move on quick enough that you don't really have
I
time
mean,
to kind of.
there is a company that is actively advertised on the radio to sell you some sort of insurance or locking of your title
Mm-hmm.
so that this doesn't happen to you, as though this happens on a somewhat regular basis.
Right.
So, that just may be something I'm not familiar with, is title fraud
Mm-hmm.
that way. I mean, I understand the whole recording system and how, in this case, it probably wasn't a lien, it was a deed of trust, was recorded against the property in favor of the loan. But that
Yeah.
actually, I mean, I thought it was plausible enough to work for the show.
Yeah. Well, and the loan, they find out, is in the name of Raymond Wagner. How about
Yeah,
that? That was
that
pretty
was,
funny.
yeah, that there were a lot of Wagners going on in both these shows, I think. Because I think there was a character with the last name of Wagner in the first show, and the second show, I believe
The
the
actress,
lead
yeah.
actress her real name is Wagner, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
We have a joke kind of on the podcast that she's my cousin, Jill
Yeah,
Wagner. And, yes, I know that's pretty random. I mean, of all the episodes to have a character named Wagner for the one that two Wagners are going to be doing the breakdowns is pretty cool. I thought
yeah,
that was funny. And so then we get introduced to this guy Tony Galletti, that he says that that Ben has threatened him, and but then the daughter and son-in-law of Ben and Bianca, they think that Tony Galletti is terrible. They hate him. And what did you think at all that Tony Galletti was a viable option for this, or did you think it was an obvious red herring?
you'd have to say an obvious red herring at the stage
Yeah.
in which he's introduced.
Right.
In the way you're led to believe. I mean, in a show like this, it's almost got to be someone that they didn't prop up as being the likely person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the surprise ending.
Mm-hmm.
So, from that point of view, probably not likely.
Yeah. And so then we have the daughter and son-in-law. They don't get along with Ben. They have this contentious relationship, and then Ben ends up getting murdered. He's a goner.
Yeah, I mean, somebody gets murdered, they plop over. I don't know. I guess they're carted away and life just goes on and
Yeah.
the mystery gets more exciting. It's
Right.
not like there's a lot of weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth when
That's right.
somebody gets murdered.
That's right. And and the daughter is very upset that anyone would think that the son and that her husband was responsible,
Right.
even though he was found with the body. I would
Right. He's
I
hovering over the body like he just killed him.
right. And he says no, that Tony did it. But Tony has an alibi, so he couldn't have done it. But they're still very skeptical. But the son-in-law didn't get along with Ben, so there's motivation. They're fighting, fighting, fighting all the time.
Right.
So, uh, then we get introduced to this lady, Amanda Gaines. So Amanda Gaines owns a restaurant, and Ben and Bianca are like investors of the restaurant, and she puts on this big talk of that she's super wealthy and everything like that, and that she's from money, but it turns out she's not really from money. And so it's a big kind of thing. Were you skeptical about Amanda Gaines? Did you think that she was a pretty strong candidate for the murder?
She seemed like the strongest candidate at that point,
Mm-hmm.
as her character developed, it seemed to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because I mean she's running this whole scam, and so obviously that makes her
yeah, I mean,
pretty strong candidate.
in the end, she was, well, dead, but also partially, somewhat, she was culpable.
Mm-hmm.
She was part of the scheme, but she ended up
Mm-hmm.
paying for it
That's
the
right.
hard way.
Yeah. So
And
she's
then she falls over dead and they just keep running the restaurant.
supposedly she has done this 9 times. with this loan scam.
Yeah.
So it's very profitable for her. And so Aurora decides that she is going to con the con, as the title suggests, and uh, she's going to try to catch Amanda
Right.
in her uh, con
Sting operation.
sting operation. That's right. That's right. And our family fun, I was talking about, the reason why I call it family fun is because in the garage sale mysteries, it is about a family. And so that's why I got the name. But this is just like extra stuff that's fun in the movie. And so in this case, you have Aurora and Nick planning their wedding. And they always make the cake testing like some kind of, oh, I've got to get to the cake testing and these kind of things. And I'm like, that's like the best part of wedding planning, right? I mean, the cake testing. That's the one part that should be
Yeah.
should be a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. But there's this conflict because Aida wants to have kind of a big wedding, but Aurora is feeling like, oh, I don't want to have so many people, but doesn't want to hurt her mother. And then it's pretty cute, I think, with Nick saying that all he wants is for her to be happy, and that was pretty cute, I thought.
Very adoring.
Yeah,
I
very
mean, he's
adoring.
a
Yes. And it was cute that he's happy with to have both of the Teagarden women in his life. That was cute, I thought too. So he wants to make Aurora and Aida happy, and so they decide to have this whole scam, this whole con the con, the sting, and they Aida, being the real estate attorney, she has the real estate agent, she has the loan information, but because the file is corrupted, so she has the hard copies, and Aida is attacked. So that was pretty pretty shocking. I mean, pretty,
yeah.
yeah. And she ends up in the hospital and everything. So yeah, that was pretty strong. Aida has been attacked several times, but never, I don't think, in the hospital.
I mean, I thought they would kill her, but they
Yeah, it
didn't
was
because
pretty
everybody's
close.
getting murdered.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty close, but she made
It
it.
was.
Yeah. And so then you have this woman, Misty Wagner, who is the wife of the person killed at the beginning of the movie. And she recognizes Amanda Gaines immediately. And so that adds to their sort of suspicion of Amanda. And so they set the trap that they're going to use Amanda to be their caterer, and they give her social security number so that they'll catch her stealing Aurora's uh, Aurora's ID. And the thing about this is that if she's done this successfully 9 times, she probably shouldn't do it with somebody like Aurora, who she knows is a busybody mystery detective person. I mean, I would probably hold off on that one.
Well, if you've done it 9 times, you're pretty confident.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, plus, it was interesting. They do pay the loans,
Yeah.
so they get a whole bunch of cash so they can easily pay the loans out of the money they got on the loan.
Yeah.
They can make payments. And they keep doing it so they get more cash. So,
Yeah, that's the Ponzi scheme thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. We have sort of the dynamic also at the police station. Arthur is trying to figure this out, and Lynn is getting increasingly frustrated with Aurora, which I am on team Lynn because I think I would be very frustrated with Aurora with her butting in on their actual investigation and making things difficult.
Well, yeah, I mean, both of these have the same type of character, the amateur investigator that
Yeah.
somehow gets to ride along or enter the scene and be a
Hmm.
pretend officer. I mean, it's probably all illegal, but it makes for I mean, it's just part of the show.
Yeah. Yeah. But because Lynn is frustrated too because she's married to Arthur, and Arthur was at one point involved with Aurora. And so she's kind of jealous and a little bit of Aurora. but she's very upset. She thinks this is a terrible idea, the sting. And one of my favorite parts of this movie, though, was Sally, her friend, Aurora's friend,
Mm-hmm.
who can't tell a lie. I thought she was very funny throughout the whole movie. She was enjoyable.
Yeah, she was. She was charming.
Hmm. Yeah, and she says, "I'd always thought I'd end up visiting you in jail someday," which is probably accurate. um, And so then they do the sting, and they show up, and Amanda is dead. And so that is somewhat shocking. And but then
Yeah, I
Aurora,
mean, but private stings,
yeah,
somebody might end up dead,
yeah, they might. And and so they Aurora gets the evidence, though. She sees what Amanda was looking at as far as the loan and everything, and there is a notary on there, and
Yeah,
It is it is a fake notary with the name Eric Wise, and
right.
this is evidently Houdini's real name.
No, it was oh, no, I think it was, yeah, you're right. It was Houdini. Yeah.
Real name, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty clever. And this is when we had met David Cotkin earlier in the story at the police station. He was there, and
Right.
he was at the very beginning with he was the neighbor that helped out Misty Wagner to break down the door. And so David Cotkin, and it turns out he's the killer. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
well, but the incredible deduction was that I think once they realized that the one notary was actually Houdini's real name,
Hmm.
then they thought of, I believe, David Copperfield and
Yeah.
looked up his real name, and it
Right.
was the same as the character, so they knew it was him,
Yeah.
which, that was actually pretty clever.
It really was. And they she had already left a message on his phone.
Right.
And so he's coming at the
Yeah.
same time that they're figuring out at the library, figuring out who he is. And so they managed to get the message to Nick as well. And so Kotkin and Nick are both on their way, building up
Right.
the suspense. And he gets there, and uh, the Lillian is kind of in the show. The librarian Lillian, she's kind of a stiff. Like she is wants everything to be done a certain way, and she's doesn't really like Aurora very much. And so he comes and thinks David comes and thinks that he can hold Lillian hostage, but no, surprise, Lillian is actually skilled at self-defense and martial arts, evidently.
Well, I mean, what happened?
Boom.
He came not knowing that Aurora knew who
Yeah.
he was, because she found out in between. Then Lillian comes out with the photocopy from the copy machine or the printer that and says, "Here, you shouldn't leave I told you not to leave your documents on the printer, but that's the one that shows David Copperfield's real name." And he sees it and realizes suddenly that she now knows who he really is and what he's guilty of. That was really good. I mean,
Hmm.
so then he goes into defensive mode because he realizes he's about to go down.
Yep.
And then he grabs Lillian, and Lillian puts up more than a good fight.
Yeah. It was
Uh,
fun. I
but
I
but
I
then is
enjoyed.
it Nick?
Yeah, Nick
Nick
comes.
doesn't put up that good of a fight, I have to say. I mean,
Yeah.
he's down and out real quick.
I mean, he's a professor, so maybe it's not his greatest
I
skill,
guess, yeah.
but
So it's kind of
but yeah.
wimpy.
Yeah. But they're able to catch him in the book
Yeah, I mean, that was like the
things.
least plausible thing in the end. I mean, to squeeze him in two
Yeah.
stacks of books was pretty.
It
I
was
mean,
pretty
it's
good.
creative, I gotta
Yeah.
say, but the likelihood of not being able to get out before your squo's too tight
Yeah.
is probably pretty low.
Yeah. I think so.
But still, it was a surprise ending to me. I never guessed it was him, and so I like that. It was it kept you thinking and trying to figure it out, and is a whodunit that I couldn't figure out. So
Yeah, I had fun with it. I think that it could have been a little bit better. It wasn't my favorite Aurora Teagarden movie, as far as the clues and the and everything, but I still enjoyed it overall. It was a fun time, and so I would give this movie 3 out of 5 crowns. What about you? What do you think?
um, well, I haven't given out a lot of crowns, so I'm not sure. My maybe I give bald heads instead of crowns, but yeah, I'd give it a. I mean, compared to the other ones I've seen, and I'd give it a good
Mhm.
3 out of 5. I'd give it a little better than that. I think
Mm.
I'd say 3.5. If you
All
do
right.
halves, do you do halves?
Yeah, yeah, we do.
Half crowns?
Yes.
Okay.
So very good. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. They're the good folks over at the Bundle Game and Hardy's Ass Bundle Listen from the creators of the Countdown to Christmas Hallmark Channel board game. There's now an official When Calls the Heart board game. Test your When Calls the Heart knowledge, recall your favorite show moments, and celebrate season 8.
This game is so much fun. Like the name 4 card, name your 4 favorite episodes of When Calls the Heart.
Not sure if I could narrow it down to just 4.
Or this acted out card, Love Triangle.
That's a fun one.
You can have these and many other cards in this fun game, When Calls the Heart board game. You can get your game at www.thebundlegame.com. Enter code Hallmarkies Podcast for free shipping. That's both words, Hallmarkies Podcast, free shipping. It's really fun. All kinds of trivia and fun stuff about your favorite show. So make sure to check out the When Calls the Heart board game at the www.thebundlegame.com, enter code Hallmarkies Podcast for free shipping. All right. Well, let's talk about Mystery 101. So, this is Mystery 101 Killer Timing, and this is our 5th of the Mystery 101 movies. And the plot on this one: an escaped serial killer and an attempt on Travis's life make their most dangerous case yet, as Amy and Travis team up with his FBI agent X to find the connection before it's too late. This movie, I was pretty excited about it because the last one was the first time that Amy and Travis had actually like officially kind of gotten together and they had a kiss in the last movie. So I was pretty excited for this movie. But I felt kind of disappointed in it because for some reason, I don't know why, I felt like they made Amy kind of a weak woman in this movie. Like she was so needy all the time. And I mean, I guess in reality, if you were dealing with all these murderers and the serial killers, you would be kind of upset and needy probably. But I just thought her character was kind of weak for her and for these kinds of movies. I don't know. What did you think? Did you see any of that?
Well, I've only seen her in one other movie.
Yeah.
Actually, compared to the one movie, I thought it was she was pretty consistent
Mm,
with the previous portrayal.
yeah.
I'd say.
So she starts out with synchronicity is the word of the day. This is the Santi Chimes of this movie. This is the like thread throughout, and big events happening at the same time. So, did you think that worked as sort of a theme
Well, I
for the
understood it at
movie?
the end, because these two movies were completely different in one respect. And with the first movie, you had really, there was only one crime involved,
Mm-hmm.
but a whole bunch of possible suspects. And then as it unwound or wound down, it narrowed down until you found out who there actually were two people involved criminally, but
Mm-hmm.
the one who was the mastermind and the
Yeah.
ultimate culprit. Whereas in this one, you had ended up having a whole series of crimes, with the one that was being presented in the beginning as the core of the film ended up being a red herring
Right.
crime and
Mm-hmm.
and character but through this process of dealing with that, all these other crimes were uncovered or were engaged in through all these relationships and situations. So, which were all, I mean, it was not plausible in
Yeah.
real life at all, but
Right.
it made it different. So you end up having murders, convictions, attempted murders, all these things. And in the end, it had nothing to do with the original crime and drama that was presented at the beginning, which was the Wolfman killer who escaped,
Yeah.
which is amazing that somebody who has been convicted of, I think, 4 murders was able to escape so easily and write things on the glass and then jump into a heating duct and find his way out.
Well, I guess Ted Bundy escaped successfully, so if he
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
these days, I hope we have better control over convicts than that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Uh,
Given I live in a town with a giant prison, I hope that's true.
it's one thing for El Chapo to have a whole team come in and free him. It's another thing for some guy just to escape by himself. But anyway,
Yeah, I must say I was hoping that the Wolfman would be an actual character that we would kind of interact with a little bit more, but we don't ever actually meet him, or he's
and
not
he
a.
gets shot and dispensed with in
Mm-hmm,
the end.
mm-hmm,
So
yeah. We get a little bit of an explanation that that Claire, who was in the previous films, has left and she's gone to Hawaii. Obviously, that was just a casting thing. There's
right,
some, who knows, she was probably
yeah,
in another show or something. And so Bud is feeling sad and missing Claire because they were kind of a thing, and so that's sort of explained. And there's a new uh, partner for Travis, and uh, Amy is put in charge of selecting the new dean of her department.
right.
They ask her to help with that.
Even though she has a massive conflict of interest, but
Yes,
that's part of
because
the story,
she is super good friends with this professor named Tabitha,
right?
and or Tabby, as I like to say. And Tabitha is dating another professor named Joe, and he is a little bit awkward, maybe a little bit suspicious of him at the beginning, but not too much. You don't see too much of him, but
Well, he's the computer tech guy, right?
yes. And
Yeah.
so she lets him, at the very beginning, she lets him install crash software on
Well, he
her
takes her
computer.
laptop. She's like, "Yeah, go ahead. I don't need it," which was unbelievable. I mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't need it for days. I mean, how does she do
Yeah.
her work? But
I couldn't
that was
survive.
suspicious to me right
There.
from the beginning.
It was very suspicious, and I agree. And so then Travis is testifying before the Wolfman, and I mean about the Wolfman, and then the Wolfman escapes, as you said. And so then Travis and Amy are on a little date, and there's a giant explosion.
Just happens.
Yeah, just so happens, a
Just on the
synchronicity.
way to dinner, right when he walks by the
Yeah,
house.
synchronicity. That's right.
That's right. That's it has nothing, it turns out, nothing to do with the Wolfman whatsoever.
That's right.
Just chance.
Yeah. And so then you have this couple, the Goffs, and they are presented as they owned the house, and they had a son who had ALS, and they basically end up committing insurance fraud. That they were going to, they had 2 mortgages on the house, so they left a chemical on the house that I guess is easily sparked next to
Yeah, I
a
think it was on a
oven.
table. So then they happen to have a wood stove that's run on pellets.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the wood stove got hot enough to, or maybe they left the little door open on the wood stove so some sparks would pop out, or else to generate enough heat to ignite the explosive, which she uses in her science classes at the high school this other material for some other purpose.
Well,
That
and
blows the house to smithereens.
but she says that she's a chemistry but then she's actually not. I forget which subject she teaches, which seems like a really stupid lie. Like, you only lie about stuff that is hard to figure out. Like, if you lie about your job, like, that's a Google search and they figure that out. I mean, if that didn't seem like a smart lie to me.
Well, I think they
But
come across as this kind of endearing couple who we normally would stereotype as not possibly capable of doing something like this.
mhm,
I mean, because they don't look like criminals.
right.
So in that way, I mean, it makes you stop and think about, well, not all criminals, quote, look like criminals.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then when he reads them the book at the jail or at the
Mhm.
precinct, and the gravity of what they've done comes bearing down on them, then you kind of feel sorry for them. Well, because supposedly they did it was all related to their son and their expenses
Yeah.
of caring for him and stuff. So you kind of have this, oh, well, it's too bad they couldn't have figured something else out.
Yeah. And I think it was a pretty decent red herring.
Yeah.
Uh, uh
Well, yeah. I mean, except for the fact that the odds of him having to walk by right as the house exploded
mhm.
were ridiculous,
But
but
I don't think they needed him to walk by that,
well,
like,
no,
for their scheme.
it was a red herring because the presumption was the wolfmen had set it up to try and kill him somehow by blowing up the
Mhm.
house as he
That's
walked by.
true.
I mean, the wolfman, he goes from Chicago to Garrison, Washington, or whatever, what it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
really quickly, even though he's an escaped convict. At least in their minds, he was there. And
Yeah.
anyway,
That's true.
that's so then it turns out the explosion was for a whole nother purpose, which was criminal in nature, which leads us to another crime being solved in the very same house that is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So and it all kind of happened very fast. I'm not even sure how Travis thought to start looking in the wall. I'm kind of missed that, but
It was because, well, it was because there's two general types of drywall. There's your normal whiteboard
um,
that's used everywhere, and then there's a greenish, kind of sage green drywall that's used in any situation where there could be moisture. It's moisture proof, whereas regular drywall is not. And so he noticed from the peeling of the wallpaper, and they even spoke about it, like, why is that? And the fire chief said, well, that's drywall for bathrooms and what have you, and it's water resistant. And he goes, well, why would it be used here? And he said, well, might have been just what they had on hand to do a repair, but that raised his suspicions. And so then, and maybe there was something else, but that was the thing that raised his suspicion as an investigator. So he tore it open,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
voila.
that was pretty shocking. I mean, you wouldn't normally have in these murder mysteries have like a body in a wall. I mean, that was
Yeah,
pretty, yeah. I was like,
a
"Whoa."
mummified skeletal remains, basically.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you have this guy, Bill Breyer, and he's breaching the caution line. He's saying, "Oh, I just wanted to buy the house to help them out. I was trying to, be nice to help the Goffs out." But he's pretty suspicious from the beginning, would you
Yeah.
say? Yeah, pretty suspicious.
He's another upstanding citizen, lawyer, retired, and
Mhm.
happened to come from Chicago by chance and work for a law firm by chance that had something to do with the Wolfman by chance, and,
Right.
so it tries to, that's a distraction,
Mhm.
that there's these are all the synchronicities, I guess, all these amazing interwoven connections from
That's right.
these different, but as
Mhm.
you know, it turns out he's a mastermind criminal too.
That's right. And basically it turns out that it's his wife who is in the
Was his wife,
was
yes.
his wife in the wall. And so he's been wanting to get to his wife for all this time. They bought the house before he could buy it or something like that. And so this was he's hoping to be able to do this. And
Yeah, I think they rented the house when he committed the crime. And then he mummified her and put her in the wall.
Yeah.
Because the house is being rented, had been rented for quite a while.
Yeah.
So then he
And
moved out there, and then his goal was to somehow get inside the wall and get the remains out.
yeah.
And
I just the whole line, there was nobody to wonder why she didn't come back from Italy.
right, exactly. No next of kin.
No, evidently not. And
He must not have any friends either.
no. And so Travis arrests Bill, and then there's a shot, almost misses him. So there's somebody else out there. It's not Bill. So that's kind of shocking. You also have some family fun in this episode, in this movie. You have obviously things between Amy and Travis. They're going on a date, they're whatever. There's lots of back and forth. And then you also have the new addition to the cast of Erin Cahill playing Kate, hit Travis's ex-wife. And I do love Erin Cahill. I actually have met her. We people that are followers of the podcast know that when she was doing a movie here in Utah, my friends over at the Bubbly Sesh coordinated it, and they surprised me with a meetup with Erin Cahill, and it was very fun. So I do love her. She's so sweet, and I do love Erin. I do love Jill and Chris. Paloha as well. They've been so great to our podcast. So I am a little bit biased to these three actors, I admit. But what did you think of Kate as a character, with her kind of relationship with Travis and how she responds to Amy? How did you think that all worked?
Well, so the FBI never would have sent her because of a conflict of interest from their past relationship. But
yeah.
I mean, now you're getting too technical. And I thought it actually, it was a stretch, the idea of, hey, you want to stay at my house, and become best friends. But she showed a lot of empathy and sort of a magnanimous approach to the whole situation, very mature, wanted the best for him. It was sort of like a doting mother wants the best for her child. But given once you accept the implausibility, and it's all for fun anyway, of the overall story, then I think the actors I liked the acting.
Yeah.
And I liked the setting, and I liked the visuals. All that I think was really good. The story, you just can't take it too seriously,
right?
As like, how could this actually happen in real life? But once you get over that, then I think it was fine.
I agree. I think you have to take it with a grain of salt and just kind of.
Well, yeah, you say it's kind of it's entertainment of a certain sort, and within that context, it's fun, and not just fun, but compelling.
Yeah.
And
I agree. And so I enjoyed their interactions. I thought that they were fun together. And there are some couples that stay pretty cordial and pretty close. But it did give you an idea of maybe why Travis is a little bit slow to make a move, kind of a thing, and why it's taken these 5 movies to well,
the trouble is you can't make the move or the show doesn't go on.
Yeah.
So,
and so you got to know a little bit more about his character. So that was good. Some backstory. But again, I didn't really like that. I felt that Amy was kind of always scared all the time. And she's not super needing Travis to protect her and whatever. And I felt like she was just not as strong as she normally is in this movie.
Well, I mean, you're introducing the ex who's an FBI agent.
That's true.
who's the real deal in investigations, and
Yeah, that's
he
true.
deals with hardened criminals and everything too. So
it'll be interesting to see if we see Kate again in future movies, or if this is just a one-time thing. I hope that we get to see her again because I really like Erin. But
what you wanted were 2 alpha females.
yeah, I guess so. That's true.
That could have gotten nasty.
Yeah, that's true. And so then you have Joe. He comes supposedly to help Amy, but then we find out that the Wolfman has been shot.
Yeah.
In Chicago. Was it Chicago? Or
no,
somewhere?
It was like up in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
2.5 hours away from. It was somewhere out in the woods, somewhere up north of Chicago.
So then Joe is the bad guy. Oh my gosh. What? Joe is the bad guy. He's bitter about Amy having to make the choice of the deans and giving, because he wants Tabitha to go with him to Oxford or someplace. And
yeah,
so
I'm not sure he's Oxford material, but the I don't know if you caught it. I mean, what he did, he swiped the laptop so he could send out from her email the announcement of a different candidate having been chosen. So then, he had to do away with her. She had to die from unknown circumstances so that she couldn't say, I never decided that.
Right. And yeah, he sends out the fake email.
Yeah.
And he's like, gunshots are too messy.
Well, he did. Apparently, he would have been the one who did fire the shot.
Yeah. But it was.
And they happened to be bending over to pick up the book when the shot came through.
Yeah.
So which was actually a good thing that book fell to the floor.
Yeah,
That's synchronicity.
That was synchronicity. That's right. Yeah. And so, yeah, he's going to inject her. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Amy, I did like, she kicks him in the face. I was like,
yeah, and he recovered from that pretty well. I was surprised. I thought that was a TKO right there.
Yeah. That's right. And then she has the iron and she boom pushes him in the face again with the iron, which I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
I mean, the whole idea that he would kill her to try and pull off this ruse is
completely ridiculous.
Absurd.
Yeah.
But it's just, people are killing each other all the time, even in high society, even in colleges and universities.
Yeah, all the time. It's a regular occurrence. And so then we end with a cliffhanger, which they don't usually do this in in these mysteries. They have that Uncle Alistair, who was mentioned very briefly by her father. Her father gives her a gift that's from that's a souvenir from Ireland, I think, or whatever. And we find out that he's missing. And so it kind of leaves you on this.
Right. Well, that's a teaser for the next show.
For the next one, yes.
Yeah.
Which is, and like normally they don't do those. So I was like, oh, that was interesting. And so, yeah, this one, I do think that they could have done more with the Wolfman angle. Like I said, I was kind of, the way they had built it and sold it is this, it's a serial killer and, those things. And yeah, this one wasn't my favorite. It's fine, but I guess I would prefer the Aurora one over this one.
Yeah, I do too.
So I'd probably give this one a 2.75 crowns.
Well, we do quarters.
Yeah. Oh. Any number you feel is fine.
Well, for me, it was not. The acting was fine. Everything was just the story was so well. I mean, it was consistent with the theme and the title. I'll say that.
That's true.
I just struggle when it seems so far stretched from removed from what could realistically happen. I have to keep saying, okay, well, that's just the show. It's not meant to be, true detective story.
It's not like gritty realism.
I'll give it a 3.
A 3. Very good. All right. Well, let us know if you're listening. Let us know what you think about these mysteries. Were you a big fan, or did you not? Did you like them even less than us? Let us know in the comment section or on Twitter. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast again. I think people will really enjoy it. Sure, you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. We've gotten 3 positive reviews in the last couple weeks, so that was so great. Thank you so much. Please do that. And then also, if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. You can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. I just posted my review of the Zack Snyder Justice League. So if you're interested in that, check it out. I'd really appreciate it. And we also have our patron group, which we are going to be having a patron watch along with Paul Campbell coming up this weekend. It's going to be really fun, and it's only $2 a month to join the Patreon. We appreciate it so much. We also have our merch store, which has tons of fun. We even have an Aurora Teagarden inspired merch that you can sign up for and you can check out. We really appreciate that support at the merch store. So thanks so much, Dad, for doing this. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have you back on again soon.
My pleasure. I look forward to it. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Bye, everyone.